The NFL loves a good quarterback story. The kid with something to prove, the veteran voices vouching for him, the fans on the edge of their seats wondering if they're watching the beginning of a new era. And right now, that story is Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland. It's not every day you get a rookie quarterback with both the game and the camera presence to shake up a franchise. Usually you get one or the other. Some rookies come in with NFL-caliber mechanics, but zero charisma, blending into the background until they're either quietly cut or quietly crowned. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. Others arrive with a highlight reel smile and social media clout, but crumble the moment a real pass rush bears down. Sanders, somehow, is both a field general with poise under pressure and a media-trained personality built for the spotlight. You don't have to squint to see why Myles Garrett and Joe Flacco, two players at opposite ends of their careers and respected voices in any NFL locker room, have been willing to call him QB1 material before he's even taken a regular season snap. Garrett, who's seen more quarterback cycle through Cleveland than most fans have owned jerseys, doesn't hand out endorsements lightly. And Flacco, a Super Bowl MVP who's played with his fair share of both phenoms and flops, has enough veteran instincts to recognize a real one when he sees it. When both of those guys speak up in your favor, it's not just a compliment. It's a signal to the entire team. And in the NFL, that kind of signal can be as important as the throws you make. From a pure football standpoint, Sanders already checks boxes that take most rookies years to develop. His footwork is NFL clean, not just quick, but efficient, wasting no motion and putting him in position to deliver the ball with perfect timing. His poise is unshakable. The blitz doesn't speed him up, and a collapsing pocket doesn't throw off his mechanics. That's rare, and maybe most importantly for Browns, he's already comfortable in an NFL-style offense. That's not just about playbooks. It's about processing speed, knowing how to disguise your own intentions while reading defenses. For a team that's been living in quarterback purgatory for decades, those qualities are gold. Cleveland's instability at the position hasn't just been a talent issue. It's been a personality and culture issue. Too often, their quarterbacks have felt like placeholders, temporary patches instead of cornerstones. Sanders offers something different, the promise of both ability and star power. And that star power isn't just a buzzword for the marketing department. The NFL is a business, and the business side loves a player who can make fans believe before the first snap of the season. Sanders is comfortable in front of the camera, knows how to work a microphone without sounding rehearsed, and has a natural charisma that draws people in. Those traits matter. They sell jerseys, fill stadiums, and get Cleveland into national conversations that don't revolve around dysfunction. When Myles Garrett says Sanders has it, fans listen. When Joe Flacco says he looks like QB1, media outlets replay it on loop. That kind of public endorsement builds a foundation in the locker room and a buzz outside of it. Suddenly, teammates are looking at Sanders differently in practice. Suddenly, defensive players are measuring their own reps against him, knowing he could be the one they go to battle for on Sundays. The Browns' decision to start Sanders in the preseason opener wasn't just a football move. It was a philosophical one. In the NFL, rookies usually get eased in, especially at quarterback. Coaches talk about protecting them from the pressure, about not throwing them into the fire too soon. But Cleveland seems to understand that Sanders isn't wired like most rookies. This wasn't a setup to watch him fail. This was a calculated opportunity to see what he could do with the first team, to give him a real taste of running the show. And it's not hard to imagine the upside if he delivers. Cleveland already has pieces most young quarterbacks would kill for. Amari Cooper, one of the league's most technically precise receivers, a top 3 defense anchored by Garrett, a fan-base star for something to rally around. If Sanders clicks with Cooper early, if he can feed off the confidence that defense provides, he doesn't just have a shot at winning the job. He has a shot at turning the Browns into a cultural moment in the NFL. It's also worth noting just how unusual Sanders' situation is. Most rookies arrive either underhyped and overlooked or drowning in expectations they can't possibly meet. Sanders? He's in this strange, almost surreal alignment where his hype level and his skill level match. The energy around him feels justified, not manufactured. Fans aren't just talking themselves into believing. They're seeing real flashes in practice and preseason reps that back it up. And let's be honest, the Browns don't get many of these moments. This is a franchise where optimism has usually been met with a cruel punchline. But right now, the optimism feels earned. Garrett's voice carries weight because he's one of the few constants in the Browns' recent history, and if he's willing to plant his flag behind Sanders, it says something. Flacco's voice matters because he's been in huddles with elite quarterbacks and knows the difference between a guy who can hang and a guy who can lead. From a strategy standpoint, Sanders fits exactly what the Browns should be building toward. He's coachable without being timid, intelligent without being overanalytical, and resilient in moments that shake lesser quarterbacks. That's the formula for solving Cleveland's most persistent problem. Not just finding a quarterback who can win games, but finding one who can survive in a role long enough to build something lasting. The cultural impact shouldn't be underestimated, either. In the modern NFL, the face of the franchise isn't just a guy under center. He's a brand ambassador, the rallying point for the city, the player who makes casual fans tune in and hardcore fans believe. Sanders has that potential in spades. Pair him with Cooper's consistency. Mix in a defense that can suffocate opponents, and you've got the blueprint for a team that's both competitive and marketable. And let's not forget, marketability isn't just about selling jerseys. It's about leverage. It's about being the kind of quarterback that free agents want to play with, that sponsors want to be around, that networks want in prime time. Sanders has already shown he can handle that side of the game without letting it distract him from the actual job. That's not easy. Plenty of players crumble when they try to juggle both. The preseason opener will be the first real test, but it's also a safe space for the Browns to take a risk. If Sanders thrives, the momentum builds fast. If he stumbles, they can chalk it up to experience without derailing his trajectory. But given the way he's carried himself so far, given the endorsements from Garrett and Flacco, given the way his skill set meshes with Cleveland's roster, it's hard not to feel like this could be the start of something bigger. When the ball is snapped in that first preseason game, all the theories and projections will get their first dose of reality. And maybe Sanders will show flashes of brilliance. Maybe he'll look like a rookie still adjusting. Either way, the Browns have made one thing clear. They see him as more than just a project. They see him as a potential answer. And in Cleveland, that's the rarest thing of all. If Sanders delivers, the Browns don't just get a quarterback. They get a leader, a brand, and a movement all in one. And in a league where the line between on-field success and off-field influence has never been thinner, that combination might be exactly what takes them from hopeful to dangerous. Here's the thing about Shedeur Sanders. The Browns didn't just stumble into him. They walked into the situation with a calculated understanding of what they were getting. Cleveland's front office isn't known for winning the long game in quarterback decisions. But this time, they've got a rare opportunity to do just that. The intrigue around Sanders isn't limited to his footwork or his composure. The real story is that he's coming into the league at a moment when quarterback value is as much about narrative control as it is about raw talent. And Sanders understands that game better than most veterans. For starters, there's his ability to adapt schemes to his skill set without forcing coaches to overhaul an entire playbook. Plenty of rookies have the athleticism but lack the mental processing to quickly pick up new wrinkles in an offense. Sanders has shown he can study film, absorb small adjustments, and execute them on the field without hesitation. That's the kind of thing that keeps coordinators flexible and defenses guessing. Then there's his efficiency in short yardage and red zone situations, something Cleveland has been historically inconsistent with. Sanders has the instincts to sense pressure, but the discipline not to panic, which means fewer wasted downs and more points on the board. In a league where games are often decided by a single possession, that trait alone can change a season. Another point worth noting, Sanders' presence could fundamentally shift the Browns' locker room culture. This isn't about replacing egos with smiles. It's about unifying different personalities around a quarterback who can bridge generational gaps. Veterans like Garrett, who have weathered the constant turnover under center, can find stability in Sanders' demeanor. Younger players, meanwhile, see someone closer to their age who's also commanding respect from the veterans. That dual credibility is rare. There's also the travel factor. Road games in the NFL are mentally grueling, especially for younger quarterbacks. But Sanders already carries himself with the kind of composed routine that travels well. He doesn't get too high after a win or too low after a loss, which means the Browns won't have to worry about emotional swings derailing momentum on the road. From a business perspective, Sanders represents more than just merchandise sales. He represents national scheduling power. If he shows even a fraction of the promise in regular season play that he's shown in camp, Cleveland could find itself flexed into more prime-time slots. That's more exposure for the team, more leverage for future TV deals, and more recruiting power when pursuing free agents. And don't underestimate the tactical benefits of his mobility. While Sanders isn't a run-first quarterback, he has the foot speed and awareness to extend plays. That buys receivers extra time downfield and forces defenses to stay honest. With a receiver like Amari Cooper running precision routes, that extra second or two can turn a contested ball into a wide-open strike. The Browns' defense is already a strength, but Sanders' style of play could make it even more effective. Sustained offensive drives mean more rest for the defense, and fewer turnovers mean fewer short fields for opponents. It's the kind of complementary football that can elevate a good defense to elite status over the course of a season. Then there's the intangible of pressure tolerance, not just in games, but in the media cycle. Cleveland has been a quarterback graveyard partly because of how quickly public opinion turns. Sanders has grown up in a spotlight thanks to his family name, which means he's already built a thicker skin than most rookies. The hot takes, the social media noise, the inevitable bust headlines after one bad game. None of that is going to rattle in the way it might with someone less experienced in handling public perception. From a long-term planning standpoint, Sanders also offers something the Browns haven't had in years: the potential to build an offensive identity. For too long, Cleveland's offensive philosophy has shifted drastically with each new quarterback. With Sanders, there's a chance to create a multi-year vision, a playbook that grows with him rather than resets every other season. That's not just good for the quarterback. It's good for the entire roster, especially receivers and linemen who benefit from system stability. On the field, one of Sanders' most underrated skills is his ability to manipulate safeties with his eyes. Even as a rookie, he's shown he can look off defenders to create passing lanes, a subtle but vital skill in the NFL, where windows close in milliseconds. This forces defenses to hesitate, and in a league where hesitation equals vulnerability, that's a weapon. And while Sanders is already media-ready, he also understands the importance of controlling the type of attention he attracts. He's not reckless with his words in press conferences, which keeps the spotlight on performance rather than on off-field drama. In Cleveland, where past players have sometimes created headlines for all the wrong reasons, that restraint is invaluable. There's also the psychological ripple effect to consider. Opposing teams don't just game plan for Sanders' arm. They have to game plan for the threat of what he might do if a play breaks down. That creates hesitation in blitz packages, forces more conservative coverage calls, and can open up opportunities for the run game. And this isn't just about raw potential. His understanding of situational football, knowing when to take a deep shot versus when to check down, when to push the pace versus when to milk the clock, is already ahead of where most rookies are in year one. That level of awareness can be the difference between playoff contention and watching January football from the couch. Lastly, Sanders' personality makes him a natural rallying point for City. Cleveland sports fans have been through decades of emotional whiplash. A quarterback who not only performs but carries himself with authenticity gives the city someone they can fully invest in. And once a city like Cleveland is all in, the atmosphere of home games becomes a tangible advantage, one that opposing quarterbacks and offensive lines feel every snap. If the Browns play this right, Sanders isn't just their quarterback of the future. He's the player who changes how the league looks at them entirely. Not a cautionary tale, not a rebuild in progress. A contender, built around a quarterback whose skill, poise, and marketability intersect in a way this franchise hasn't seen in a lifetime. One of the most overlooked aspects of Shedeur Sanders' rise in Cleveland is how his presence could reshape the Browns' draft and free agency strategy for years to come. When a team is confident in its quarterback for the long haul, it changes everything about how they build a roster. Instead of chasing stopgap veterans or gambling high picks on potential quarterback projects, The Browns can focus their resources on surrounding Sanders with top-tier weapons and building elite depth in the trenches. That stability at the most important position lets the front office plan 3 for even 5 years ahead instead of constantly hitting the reset button. Another point worth considering is how Sanders' playing style could extend the career of key veterans around him. Take Amari Cooper, for example. A precision route runner thrives with a quarterback who throws on time and places a ball where only the receiver can make a play. That's exactly what Sanders does. By maximizing Cooper's skill set, Sanders keeps the Browns' WR1 productive for longer, which means Cleveland doesn't have to rush into drafting a replacement before it's truly necessary. The same logic applies to running backs. Fewer stalled drives mean fewer high-contact carries in tight spaces, which can help prolong careers in a position that often burns out quickly. Sanders also has the kind of leadership style that works in modern NFL locker rooms. He's not the rah-rah guy who shouts just to fill the silence, but when he speaks, it's with purpose. That's important in a league where players see through performative leadership quickly. His ability to connect with teammates on a personal level, whether they're rookies fresh out of college or veterans in their 10th season, creates trust. And trust is the fuel that keeps a team fighting through the grind of a 17-game season. There's also a tactical element to how Sanders reads defenses pre-snap that could allow the Browns to expand their playbook faster than expected. He's shown a willingness to handle complex audibles, something that usually comes after a year or two of seasoning. If Cleveland can install more layered option routes and disguise formations early in his career, they can catch defenses off guard simply because most teams don't expect that kind of sophistication from a young quarterback. One underrated benefit of having Sanders is how his presence can change the way defenses play Cleveland altogether. If he proves to be as accurate and consistent as his camp performances suggest, opposing defenses will be forced to respect the passing game more, which opens up bigger lanes for the run game. This could make life easier for whichever running backs the Browns pair him with, and in turn, keep the offense balanced, a crucial element for playoff-caliber teams. From a fan engagement perspective, Sanders gives Cleveland something they haven't had in years, a quarterback worth building a citywide identity around. Jerseys aren't just selling because he's new. They're selling because people believe he might finally be the guy. That level of emotional investment has a ripple effect, increasing home field energy and even pushing ticket demand higher, which fuels more revenue for the team to reinvest. Another fresh angle is the media protection he naturally provides for his teammates. When a quarterback commands as much attention as Sanders does, the spotlight tends to follow him whether the news is good or bad. That means if the defense has a rough game or a receiver drops a key pass, the post-game questions often still circle back to Sanders. By absorbing that attention and handling it with composure, he shields teammates from the kind of public scrutiny that can chip away at morale. In terms of game pacing, Sanders brings a rhythm to the offense that keeps the unit in sync. His ability to quickly read and release reduces the number of broken plays and wasted possessions. That rhythm isn't just about efficiency. It also helps wear down opposing defenses, forcing them to chase receivers in space and defend sideline to sideline for 4 quarters. There's also a big-picture marketing advantage for the Browns. With Sanders as the face of the team, Cleveland suddenly becomes more relevant in national conversations. That relevance isn't just about highlight plays. It's about being included in storylines that drive the NFL news cycle week after week. And when your team is part of the national conversation, it becomes easier to attract attention from sponsors, networks, and, most importantly, high-caliber players looking for their next contract. We also can't ignore how Sanders' skill set might force the Browns' coaching staff to evolve. Having a quarterback who can make every throw and process defenses quickly allows offensive coordinators to be bolder in their play design. They can dial up aggressive downfield shots without worrying about poor decision-making or panic under pressure. They can also lean into creative formations and tempo changes, knowing Sanders won't be rattled by a sudden shift in game plan. Then there's a situational awareness in 2-minute drills. Even in limited preseason action, Sanders has shown an innate understanding of clock management, sideline usage, and the importance of controlling momentum in those final minutes before halftime or at the end of the game. For a rookie, that's almost unheard of, and for a team like Cleveland, it could mean turning close losses into wins. Finally, Sanders' presence gives the Browns a bargaining chip in future trades. Teams without a quarterback often have to overpay to get offensive talent because free agents fear instability. With Sanders in place, Cleveland can pitch stability, a clear offensive identity, and a proven leader to incoming talent. That kind of leverage can mean better roster moves without breaking the bank. In short, Shedeur Sanders isn't just a talented young quarterback. He's a catalyst for change in almost every facet of the Browns organization, from how they build their roster, to how they design their offense, to how they present themselves to the rest of the NFL. And if his trajectory continues upward, Cleveland won't just be talking about making the playoffs. They'll be talking about making history.